Welcome to the Inventory Professional Podcast, brought to you by Inventory Base, providers of industry-leading property inspection software, accredited training, and on-demand property reports. Join us as we discuss the latest news, legislation, and all things property, hosted by our very own inventory expert, Sián Metcalf. With regular special guests, listen in to our open and honest discussions about the role of the inventory professional and how to navigate through this ever-changing, fast-paced industry.
Welcome to Inventory Base Academy podcast with myself, Sián from Inventory Base Academy, and I have my co-host Melissa from MGN Inventories. Hi Melissa, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very, very good. I cannot believe we are nearly at the end of January. In a way, I still want to say Happy New Year, but I don't know, when is it right or when is it wrong to say that? Do you leave it like a couple of days or a week or?
I know. I always think, a couple of days past New Year's, it feels like it's just back to business as usual. But I'm still getting sort of emails from people saying, oh, Happy New Year. And I think actually it wasn't that long ago.
No, it's exactly. Yeah, I've had a few recently, and everyone's saying like, "How's your New Year going?" and all this, and even referring back to Christmas, which is lovely. It really is nice because it's a great way to open up the conversation on email, isn't it? Rather than "Can you do this?" or "Could you do that?" Where have you booked? But equally, I always think, what point do I stop? It's like first day of the month, the whole pinch punch first day of the month thing. I mean, after 12 o'clock, you're not meant to do that. I just wonder, is that exactly the same for New Year's greetings?
New Year's, that's it. Well, I have seen it. People have still got their trees up, actually. There was a little social media thing going around saying it's as bleak as it can be at the moment with, obviously, the new lockdown. So some people are keeping their trees up. And I did, I've seen a few through windows. I couldn't do it personally. New Year is my signal to, that's it. Get your tree down, do a spring clean.
No, exactly. Well, I was exactly the same. I think ours was up about 6 days afterwards because, again, there's a timeline, isn't there, where you kind of you're meant to take it down, and I can't remember exactly what that is, but ours normally comes down around about the 6th day after Christmas. But I have actually noticed not just Christmas trees. There's a couple of properties in my very local area, and they've got the full decks. And I'm not just talking tree, I'm talking outside light, the lot. And to be fair, in a way, I think actually that looks really good, and it just brightens things up because it's January, it's dull, it's wet, it's horrible outside, and then you drive down the road and you've got all these different coloured twinkling lights and flashing and stuff like that. And
that is quite nice.
I think it's really good, and it's clear that it's not just because they've forgotten about it. I mean, someone's obviously every single night everything gets turned on, and I think, well, why not? I think that looks brilliant.
That's it. Not like those lights that we sometimes see on properties in July and they're still just stapled to the outside. That these ones mean it.
Oh, they totally mean it. And the trouble is also, it must be a bit weird because then as you drive past or you walk past, you can't help but look. And ever so often, the occupants kind of look back at you, and then you think, "Oh, I shouldn't be looking." But equally, you've got your lights on. I've got no choice. I have to look.
Yeah, I have to look. They probably wonder what you're doing until they realise that they've got all their twinklies on, and then think, yes.
Yeah, well, exactly. But it does make it look, a little bit brighter, a little bit nicer. We're still in the throes of lockdown 3.0, and it's nice to have something good happen. It's nice to have something to look at that makes you smile, and that leads me on to the subject of awards. Melissa, someone's won an award, haven't they?
Someone has, yes. Oh, I'm terrible at this. I'm terrible at accepting any praise or compliment. It's good it's not a video because I'm bright red.
We're British, Melissa. We never ever accept compliments. We're kind of like, yep, okay, fine, move along.
Yeah, that's it.
I think it is really, really nice, and it's good that clerks in the industry, professional inventory providers, are getting recognised for the work they do. So obviously the listeners can't see you, so tell us all about it. What did you win? What was it, and how does it look?
So the most important thing is it's beautiful.
Actually, it's a really good award. I'm quite.
It is very pretty, very heavy, actually, surprising, but looking lovely on the windowsill. So I think it was, obviously we've been delayed by lockdown. So I won last July for Inventory Specialist of the Year 2020. and it's supposed to coincide with the magazine editorial which is coming out, and they were going to do that at the same time as an awards ceremony. So that was originally scheduled for September and then got delayed till November and then January, and then obviously we've been delayed again. So I think at this point we've given up with the awards ceremony. But yeah, I mean, essentially it was from the South England Prestige Awards, who collaborate with Corporate Livewire, and they do like a number of awards to recognise people in local fields. So whilst it's southeast, I think they were specifically looking in sort of the Hampshire area. And yeah, I mean, essentially it's nice. It's a recognition of what you're doing and what you're providing. There are a number of things that they look at, categories and criteria. And essentially it is kind of sort of the work you're doing, the reviews you get, things about you on social media, and they check, you know, how active you are in community, that kind of thing. So, you know, it is nice to be recognised. It's sort of, you know, pretty confidence affirming. So that's always good.
It is. And as I said to you before, you know, we don't get recognised enough. And I say that we, as in the royal we, i.e. inventory providers and suppliers, clerks, however we can't call ourselves, still haven't worked that one out yet, still need a proper definitive title. But it is good that you said you've been recognised, that there's awards out there, because I don't really see many awards in, you know, for clerks, for suppliers in the main. It tends to be more your headline kind of awards, like your estate and letting agent awards, and, you know, the more the high level. So there are supplier categories, and we've been lucky enough in regards to inventory base to be within that and have won a few awards. But in the main, there isn't anything really specifically for us. Now, I know some of I think I mentioned AIC do an award. The problem I have sometimes with awards is that, you know, what their meaning is it an award for an award's sake, or is it an award like you've got because, you know, you're not only measured on what you produce as a provider, but also everything around your business and how you are as a person and how you're interacting with your community. And I think that gives a much rounded picture of the person and of the business and your aims, your goals, you know, your ethos, which to me, you know, that is what an award should be about.
Exactly. And I think, you know, touching on what you said, that there really aren't that many awards for our field and tradespersons. And I think especially in connection with sort of lettings and estate agents, a lot of their awards appear to be more sort of sales driven, targets and figures, less so even for them on the customer service point of view. So I think for us to win something that they can, you know, is more tangible for them, that they can understand, I think that's quite nice as well. And even from the announcement, I announced it last year, and then when we won the award recently, when the trophy came through recently, we also put another post, but I had a couple of people contact me on the basis of that. And whilst you know, nothing should be that you win something so you're more recognised, I think it does help to get your name out there as well, and then also just to distinguish you from other people. It's a good talking point, and it's obviously generated some interest as well, which is great.
That's absolutely brilliant, and it's good that then people then can see that and see, you know, more about you and your service, and it's more than just a report, isn't it? It's about the whole service, that holistic view, and it's great that you've actually got some business out of it as well. So, but well done, and it is a lovely award.
Very pretty.
If anybody wants to see or get any details for that, where's the best place they can find that? Would that be on your website?
Yes, so it will be on the website, which is mgninventories.co.uk, and you know, it's connected to other social medias as well, so it connects to our Instagram and our Facebook page as well.
Oh, fabulous. Well done. I'm really, really pleased for you. And I know, so we know I put your picture up in the details in the inventory based support hub on Facebook, and you know, you got a hell of a lot of likes there, because at the end of the day, we're all clerks, you know, we all like to see everybody do really, really well. So I think it's a nice boost, a nice way of kind of getting us through January when it's so yucky and horrible. And it certainly brings up a point about the fact that the industry needs to recognise all of the players within the industry, everybody in the the lettings process, the estate agency process. And it's something certainly I've been having talks with Property Mark about their whole membership benefits. How can they improve and be a better organisation? And I've certainly suggested at an annual Property Mark Awards that celebrate the industry and its diversity within the industry would be really a good idea, so that we all feel very included and supported, and that if we got an award, it meant it was because we have done well and we're delivering a really good and quality business, as opposed to, like you said, just get it based on sales figures. We want it to be so much more than that.
Yes, and I mean, I think that would be great for for the wider implications of recognition, but also within our field, just to give a boost to other people, for them to know that we are recognised for our achievements. And like you say, it's nice to even hear that someone else has won something. It does give you that little boost. If those sort of things could be considered by any awarding bodies for us to be looked into, I think that would be great.
Yeah, it definitely would be, and it's a great way to promote and get your face and your details out there, and for all the right reasons. That's the key thing for me. An award should be about the person, the service delivery, how good they are, not whether they've made a brilliant submission. It's got to be more than that. It's got to have really good meaning, and so people then, when they see those awards, they feel like, yeah, this is a person I would like to work with. They're doing really well. They're very customer centric and focused, and and sometimes good awards can do a lot of really good positive PR for the right reasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
So industry as a whole at the moment, I don't know about you, we're open for business, as we all know, but interestingly, I was in a meeting earlier on today, and someone made the very valid point, is that we're meant to be open on the basis to help people who need and have to move. It's not a case of, well, we're just going to be out there working, and the lettings industry is open, the estate industry is open just for anybody and everybody just to carry on with their normal business. And one of the reasons that it was said that is because apparently they've had some people where they've been driving 50 odd miles to the coast to view properties when, to be honest with you, they're probably not going to be doing anything about it, but it's a good excuse to get out and about, which, don't get me wrong, I can totally understand it. I think we're all fed up. We've all had enough. But equally, until we get those numbers down, until people are able to, the vulnerable, those shielding, are able to leave their homes and safely, we've got to do this. But I think there's a bit of a misconception that, it's just business as usual, and it totally isn't.
100%, I agree with that. I mean, I had to go to an agent the other day, and obviously they've got all the protocols in place and had the door locked, and we were all wearing masks. But there were quite a few people just sort of wandering around outside, looking at the sort of displays in the window of the properties that are available. And I do definitely get the impression that it is just the housing market, albeit somewhat slower, I'm finding, is just carrying on. It isn't for necessarily essential moves. And obviously, from our point of view, we don't really know either way, do we? I mean, we have the booking. We don't know if it's someone that desperately needed to move somewhere, someone in the NHS that needs to move, or whether it is just something that could have waited, a generic move.
Yeah, we got no idea. It said all we can do is carry on the booking, keep to our protocols. But I have found, and talking to other providers across the country, there are instances where protocols aren't necessarily being followed. Some clerks feel a little bit uncomfortable or pressured, especially if there's other kind of like trades within the property when they shouldn't be. Realistically, our protocol should be we're the only ones there, we're the last ones in the chain, and making sure that there's been at least 72 hours since the last person was there if possible. If it's not, then clearly we're taking all the necessary precautions anyway, masks, gloves, sanitizing, shoe covers, etc. But I think there's a definite shift I've noticed this year from last year, where it's still being taken seriously, and I wouldn't necessarily say that people are not, but I think some people switched off. That it's all become almost too normal now. We're so used to it that we sometimes forget, and that then potentially can put clerks safety at risk, agents safety at risk, tenants, landlords. It's not just about us, it's about that whole chain. And I have found myself having to remind certain individuals, or when we've maybe gone into properties or having discussions with people or with clerks themselves, reminding them that we've all got a duty of care effectively. If you look at it from a health and safety point of view, that's exactly what we have.
Yes, exactly. And I think that it is a sense of complacency, really. Like you say, people switching off a little bit because it is kind of the new normal in some respect. But I think we've always had the issue before coronavirus that there would be someone popping into the property, maybe a cleaner just finishing off or an appliance being delivered, and we'd always have to work around people. And whilst, the occurrences of that are much less now, I do think that maybe, agencies, private landlords sometimes just aren't thinking it through. So, I don't think it's intentional, but... And we touched on this before, the safety precautions that they might take very seriously for themselves in branch. They're not thinking, oh, hang on, I'm just going to pop someone into a property to drop off this fridge while we're in there. And they're just not thinking it through in terms of us wanting that gap in between things. Certainly, I think that the duration in between tenancies before in the first lockdown was a lot longer. So you would feel, personally, I felt more comfortable going in, doing an inventory, knowing, or, a checkout, knowing that someone had left however many days ago. But I think now that it's almost back to what it was before, that it's quick turnarounds. Someone's left this morning, can you go in the afternoon? And then it's having those conversations. And like you say, it's reminding people. I recently had an incident with a client where I had been very clear. I was doing a checkout about when I could go and that we would not be in the property at the same time. And they kind of expected us to be in the property at the same time when they arrived, which I had to sort of remind them, no, that's not the case, and, explain that. And I think it almost makes you feel a little bit awkward. You've got to be quite strong individually, sort of stick to your guns and say, no, this is why. The person wasn't wearing a mask either. And I think naturally when you're talking to someone, you kind of gravitate towards them. So we were kind of doing that dance, getting a bit closer, and I was getting a bit further away.
I kind of feel less dancing, more dodgems.
Yes. That's it. It is difficult, I think, to keep reminding people. But like you say, we all have that duty of care, and really the consequences are so high if we don't, for that awkward conversation to say, actually, no, I'm not, going to go around the property with you and this is why, and just to do it, then, what if you catch it? What if you pass it on to someone else and it's just not worth the risk?
And this is the thing, isn't it? It's that it's not necessarily just one way. We could be asymptomatic. And we wouldn't necessarily know it. We wouldn't necessarily know that, that we've got that potential unless we've been tested. Unless you're testing literally constantly all the time, it's very difficult to know. So I think the government's advice at the moment is treat everything and everybody as if you've got it. And in that way, then, your protocols are very kind of strict, and that you've always got that at the forefront of your mind rather than the back end of your mind. But it's easy to get complacent. It's been a long time. I was talking to my mum the other day, and, she's practically been shielding for nearly a year. And when you look at it in those kind of terms, you just think, wow, that's just mad. But that's just unfortunately where we are at the moment. But I do think as service providers, yes, it's going to be an awkward conversation, but equally, I'd rather it be awkward and had it and then everybody's safe than not have it because I felt too awkward and then people are not safe. And I think that's the balance you've got to draw. And I don't think it necessarily, it doesn't have to be a great big long speech. It doesn't have to be a protracted conversation. It could be literally as simple as every couple of months, just reissue your email saying, just to let you know, these are our protocols. This is what we're working to. If there's any problems, let me know. And certainly if you're coming across like you've had, like you were just explaining about having people come into the property, which we've had, and I know other clerks have experienced, is just going back to the agent, going back to the landlord or whoever's commissioned the report to say, look, these are our protocols. They're there for your safety as much as they are ours. So you need to make sure that when these are being booked, everybody's aware. Could you just feed that back. And I don't think that's a difficult conversation. I think that's right to have that. And to be honest with you, if the shoe was on the other foot and we were doing something wrong and we weren't adhering to those kind of guidelines, then I would expect someone to have that conversation with me too.
Yes, exactly.
So, but hopefully, fingers crossed, we might be coming to that end of that particularly long tunnel. I still think we've got a bit of way to go. I don't see the market changing very much within, I don't know, before, say, summertime. I think we will still be having a lot of restrictions until about that time, purely because of the sheer complexity of having to get everybody vaccinated that is willing to be vaccinated and everything that's got to happen there afterwards. So we're not out of the woods yet, but I'm seeing glimmers. You know, we were talking earlier on that I'm busy, but not massively busy, a bit lower than maybe we were this time last year, but we've not stopped, if you see what I mean. There's still work there. There's still things happening. And in a way, I think if it was too busy, I'd be even more worried.
Back in the summer when the lockdown was eased a bit, and I think it was frantic for everyone. You know, if we were getting to sort of higher numbers, it would be a bit of a worry. And I think, again, you'd need to sit and review your protocols and processes and think, is this what I want to carry on with? Do I need to scale back in some way just to, you know, protect yourself and others, really? Because it's almost one of those things that you can do as much as you're willing to do. So you've really got to, you know, think what's best on that scale.
Yeah, and you've got to put safety at the forefront. It's something I teach certainly when I'm training clerks. First couple of slides when we're going through our practical training day, everything is about safety. Everything is about PPE. Everything is about making sure that the first thing you think of is your safety and everyone else's safety. Because again, under health and safety rules, just because I don't employ my clerks, they're all self-employed, it doesn't mean I don't have responsibility to them. I do. Equally, I have a responsibility to my clients, to my landlords, to my agents, and they have equal responsibility for me and, you know, people that they work with and supply and use and or commission services from. So I think, you know, as long as we kind of keep that in in the forefront of our minds, I don't think we can go far wrong. But I do think sometimes those kind of conversations just need to be reiterated, or that email sent out. So just to let you know, just to remind you, and if you've got any queries, come back to me. And, you know, it just helps people remember, because you know, life is busy anyway, especially people working from home, having to homeschool. You know, there's a lot of hats and balls, as it were, being juggled here, and it's easy to forget because it's become such the norm.
Yes, it has. And that's why I don't think people necessarily are intentional breaking the rules as such, but it is so easy to become complacent and just forget, really. I mean, it'll be interesting to see when everything is as much over and done with as it could be. You know, if things are a little bit back to normal in the summer, how we all act, whether we're going to be a bit weird about being closer to someone in a queue.
I think it's a good point. It will take a bit of getting used to. I mean, even now, you know, just pop into the shop to get a few things. My immediate thought is keep as far away as possible. And if anyone gets a bit too close, I mean, we all have a personal space, and everybody's personal space is very much personal to them. You know, some people like a lot of space, other people are very comfortable. If you're literally nose to nose, it's whatever you're used to. But I have found that, you know, I'm not overly keen on having people too near me, and I will automatically take a step back if I feel that space is, that 2 meters is getting smaller and smaller. Which,
that's it. You know, it's funny how it affects us now, though, isn't it? That is a part of our life. I saw a film on TV the other day, and there was a crowd, and even immediately I was like, oh no, I don't like it.
It's weird, isn't it, how you think about that? And it's even like when the first lockdown happened, I noticed cars were socially distancing when we were getting to the traffic lights. Everybody was taking like a very specific mental, you know, step back, and normally cars are literally bumper to bumper, and all of a sudden there's a big gap here, and we're all doing it, and I was doing it, but even that's now closed back down again. Obviously we don't need to do that, apart from obviously being safe, you know, whilst out driving, but equally it's amazing how mentally we deal with these types of things. And it's interesting to see, you know, what that then looks like you said, when we get back to normal. And at this point I'm gesturing inverted commas wherever that's ever going to be again, to see exactly how we behave. It's interesting times. So on another point, and kind of talking about safety and the industry as a whole, we were talking literally just before we started the podcast, because it's something that came up this morning in another meeting I was at. I do a lot of meetings, as you can tell. EICRs, and for anybody that's listening that's not aware, which I'm sure you guys all are because you're all professional providers and suppliers, and you know your industry inside and out. But EICRs, they came in June 2020, and that was for all new tenancy. So this is the electrical installation condition record. So basically all rental properties will have these EICRs. So the first tranche was for new tenancies, and then as of April this year, 2021, it's going to incorporate all existing tenancies. So effectively all of rental properties will be in scope as of the 1st of April. But it was mentioned this morning about the fact that because of the pandemic, electricians are extremely busy. I think the industry said they were given 9 months notice, but it's going to take 18 months worth of work to get everybody done, and that's within scope. So that kind of tells you things aren't going to be ready. And there's certainly a worry that a lot of the works that have got to be done, either remedial works that have come out of these reports have got to be done, that they're not going to be. So a lot of agents, a lot of landlords are worried about that impact on that, and whether they will actually be subject to fines, and how the councils and how the government kind of will look at that. And from what I understand, they're not going to be extending the deadline. So it's going to be the 1st of April. Every tenancy is going to be in scope, and that's it. But the question is going to be about enforcement. Now, from a clerk point of view, a lot of people are saying, well, it's got nothing to do with me. And I get this a lot. But the thing is, if we're aware of that, and we know that that's a potential pinch point, a potential issue and a pain point for our clients, we can then kind of work with it. Especially, I don't know about you, Melissa, but often I get, oh, you can't get the keys now. The electrician's got it. So they're the electrician in before us, which is fine, because we're meant to be at the end, aren't we? But it's equally quite annoying, because a lot of the times it's really last minute. But quite rightly, they've got to get these trades in to get these EICRs done because of the safety element of it. But I did hear this morning that, the government are looking at it from a point of view, look, as long as you made reasonable steps and you've tried to get into the property, you've tried to get the EICR done within the time frame, then there'll be reasonable about it, and as long as you made reasonable steps to comply, and you can prove that, then that's what will make the difference. The biggest thing about the proof side of things, as with anything, and as you know, Melissa, with the reports, everything is about evidence. You've got to be able to write that down.
Yes, and I think it's a huge undertaking for existing properties, because not only the works that will pop up from these, and if you think properties may not have had, any electrical faults, everything might have been fine, but that fuse box might be 15 years old or so, it might need something new. So just for agents to think, okay, we've got to get the electrician in to do the EICR, it is the work that's going to be required afterwards. And obviously the knock-on effect of that is trying to get in there during coronavirus, being safe whilst doing so, and then also the works that need to be done afterwards. I mean, I remember back from my property management days trying to organise gas safety certificates, which I think pretty much now all tenants, they know, they understand, they recognise it's a legal requirement. Even those kind of things, trying to allow a trade in, tenants would kick back and say, no, well, it can't be now, it can't be this time, it's got to be after 6 o'clock on a Saturday, sometimes completely unreasonable times, or they would agree and the gas contractor would attend and they wouldn't let them in. And that was for something that is really well known. Trying to explain the EICRs to tenants, I think, and the importance of them, because before, everyone really could understand the importance of the gas safety. I mean, it's something very well spoken of, it's always on TV, but I don't think people necessarily view electrical things the same way. And we had got to the point of notifying tenants in writing on one of these systems. I don't want to say anyone in particular, and you can see that they've seen it, and they can reply, just so there is that audit trail to we've tried to gain access, and I think a lot of agents have the software now where you put a note and it date and time stamps it and it can't be changed. So you can put a note on to say, I've left them a voicemail, we've had this conversation. There will always be people that don't want to let you in, but having that audit trail to say you've tried, I do wonder how that works after the initial assessment. So maybe, once you've managed to get the contractor in, if it comes up that it needs some work, then honestly, I think the majority of places will need something, whether it's a new RCD or it's something to do with the shower or the wiring. Most of the time, there is always something that needs to be done, however minor. Then trying to organise that works to be done, because the contractor might not have necessarily allowed enough time to do that on the spot. So to then go back in and have, again, that audit trail that you're trying to get them back in, if there needs to be parts, the electricians will have multiple properties and it'll be a very busy time for them. I think that'll be very tricky in terms of audit trails for that many properties.
Yeah, it's a huge undertaking for the industry, without a doubt. But it does kind of highlight the fact that everything has to be noted, everything has to be written down. Obviously, electronically is the best method because it can date and time capture like our reports do. So then there's no questions should there become an issue later on. And certainly with the fines that agents could, or landlords, etc., could be given by the council or the governing body, whoever's overseeing EICR compliance side of things, the fines can be quite substantial, and obviously they need to do everything they can. And some people, from our point of view, clerks, would say, well, it's got nothing to do with me, it's really not my business, I've got no interest and I can't do anything about it. No, you can't do anything about it, but what you can do is understand it, so it's going to be a potential impact. It might impact on you and your work and what you're doing, and also understand that you might find you'll have to shift your reports around to accommodate it. And there's a really good reason, because of the restrictive date that all of these have got to be done. And plus, also, if you understand this and you can communicate that to your client, and that they are aware that you know what it is that they're doing, it really does make a lot of sense for you to understand, make sure that you are being as helpful as possible. None of us like to have reports cancelled at the last moment. It creates a lot of problems, missed opportunities, missed revenue. But sometimes equally these things can't be helped, and it's about us all kind of pulling together to get that in. And the other thing also is the actual report itself. Certainly within inventory-based templates, we've got a section on there under health and safety and certificates, and part of those certificates is about highlighting whether an EICR electrical condition report has been done or not, and the assessment date and the detail and pictures of it as evidence that it's been done. And it all helps the agent and the landlord and the tenant and the council to have that evidence bundle. So should anything happen with the tenancy, and should it be relied upon, if it goes to dispute that things weren't done, so a section 21 as it stands at the moment, or section 8 as it might be used to end a tenancy, can't be, because all the evidence is there. Our report acts as part of that bundle. So it is important from an industry perspective that we understand that, and we understand what it is that impacts on not just us but also our clients.
Yes, and I think it's great that we've got that facility under inventory base to so clearly allocate the documents and put the details within. Like you said, in theory, the agent, the landlord, someone else would have a copy of things, but it's a great way for them, if they've got copies of the property, to have, a PAT test, an EICR, the gas safety, the EPC, all of those documents loaded onto the inventory. It's almost sort of a one-stop shop for them to have everything there. And I think, apart from the fact that we would want to record it anyway, because it's in the property, it's great for agents to see that we recognise the importance of them, agents and landlords, and that, we're taking steps to help them really to ensure that everything's all there for them.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely goes into that whole kind of understanding and ideal that certainly inventory services, professional inventory providers, not just focus on what we do, but also what the wider industry does, how it impacts, how it dovetails back into our reports, and how we can help facilitate that. Because if we're seen as facilitators and helpful and knowledgeable, then clients will naturally gravitate towards our services, because not only do they get a brilliant and good quality report, but they also get someone who understands their industry, understands what they're having to deal with and having to manage, and can help that and not hinder it. Whereas I think if we just kind of concentrated on our own little portion of the industry, our own little section, and then basically just not really bother with anybody else, then we tend to miss out on opportunities from a work point of view, relationship point of view with potential new clients. And also we want clients to see our services as professional, and part and parcel of that is about being an expert in your field. And that just doesn't mean about an expert in inventories, reports, but it's also about the wider industry. And if you have that understanding, then people will think, oh, I can go to Melissa, or I can go to Sián, or I can go to Natalie, or go to Sam, for these different reports, because I know that they understand what it is I need. And quite often then we can make suggestions to them. We can say, oh, well, have you thought about doing this? Better method of information capture, or either we can feed into that from an interim property inspection point of view. Even if we're not physically going in, we've got live inspections, we've got remote inspections, so that all feeds into that evidence, especially if the tenant's saying, look, I'm shielding, I can't have anybody in the property. And part and parcel of the evidence bundle is the fact is we're doing interim property inspections remotely using live inspections. We're going around the house. I mean, that could be another option available to, maybe assess the property in maybe more finer detail. So there's potential there to help the industry and to be seen as helping, rather than, just looking after our own little section.
Yes, and I think there's, only ever benefits for us all understanding the wider implications of things. It is important for us to know what's happening in lettings and estate agents, and the regulations and things that they're facing, like you say, for them to have confidence in us and feel that they can turn to us and that we understand what's going on. We're aware of everything in the field. But also, I think from their point of view, sometimes it's helpful, when obviously at the moment we can't go in and have chats and things, but every now and again I like to do sort of, courtesy visits to my agents and clients, and just go through things that are happening with us at the moment. And I think that helps, that kind of mutual respect for everyone, and that we're all understanding that we play a part in what we do. And I think that helps raise awareness, like we've said many times, of us just being kind of the report fairy. Something's in your email box. But, it helps put a face to a name, and it can only be good things if we're all paying attention to what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, funny enough, that was a conversation I was having with a clerk the other day, and they were asking, how do I get in to see an agent? Because I physically can't get to see an agent. How can I talk to them and communicate and get them interested in my services if I physically can't have that face-to-face conversation? And like you just said, picking up the phone, or you've got social media, or you can talk about particular issues that's affecting the industry, that's affecting them, and how you could potentially solve them. I mean, with the EICRs, you've got one potential for a template within inventory base, which is coming. Then obviously that feeds into the reporting template, and how the inventory based system captures that information and provides a timeline, an audit trail. So there's a potential option. And then you've got the social media side, so you can talk about EICRs, what you understand, how your service can help people, and also making sure that agents are aware of the timeline, the fact that the 1st of April is the cut-off line, that there is no extension on that. Because a bit like with the tenant fee ban, I was still having conversations literally right up to the point of when the ban came in, where agents and landlords just weren't aware of the provisions and weren't ready, and then they're rushing around like mad trying to get ready, with the risk of potential fines, involved in that side of things. So if we can help facilitate that, even just by having a general conversation, are you ready for the 1st of April for EICR, for the fact everyone is going to be in scope? And often you'll get the agent go, oh yeah, I'm fully aware, I'm really ready for that. Or just to let you know, I've got to move one of your reports because we've got the engineer coming in. And you go, fine. But if you didn't have that conversation, you could probably rock up to the agent to get the keys and they go, oh no, sorry, it's been put back, or we've had to cancel it for the moment because the contractor's in there. Sorry, forgot to tell you, because of this, they're doing so many other things. So if you're having conversations, often it will prompt another conversation, or it will prompt a memory. You've got, I need to reschedule that, cancel it, or have a conversation with you about it. But because you had that initial one, it's prompted them. Whereas if you didn't, you weren't conversing with them, then they wouldn't have it. So, I said social media, phones, ringing up, how are you? First things I always ask my clients when I ring up is, hi, how are you? How's everything going? Not straight into, can I have? Or where's my ticket? Did you realise you just cancelled me? It's always the first thing. Talk to people how you would like to be talked to.
Yeah, and it helps that relationship, I think. It is important.
Yeah, totally. So I think that wraps today's podcast up. I think that's been quite interesting. So we've got EICRs, we talked about awards, we've talked about the industry at the moment. The other thing that I did want to talk about, but I think what we'll do is we'll do it for next podcast, Melissa, is talk about HMOs and us as providers, how we do the reports and what we've got to take into account, because I think that's a much bigger conversation. So if you're happy, we'll talk about that next time.
Yeah, absolutely. The HMOs are a whole other beast, aren't they? So
definitely.
I think that would be great for us to do a podcast just focusing on them and the implications that they have.
Excellent. And I think, from our podcast listeners, if you do have any specific questions or queries about what we do in regards to the actual reports in a HMO, how you do them, what you've got to take into account, what you've got to be aware of, then let me know. You can send them to me at sian@inventorybase.com, and then we can include those in the podcast and hopefully answer those queries for you, because it is a big subject and there's a lot of dovetailing of different legislation and understanding different bodies that are involved in the whole of the HMO process, from licensing to regular visits, from agents, from landlords, from councils, etc. So it's not a straightforward subject. So I think it would be really, really good to touch on that on our next podcast. Thank you very much indeed, Melissa. Again, well done on your award. I hope we see more for you and also for other clerks. And so we'll definitely watch this space. It'd be great to have another conversation about that, maybe middle of the year when the awards ceremony kind of season starts, as it were. Tends to be around about June, July normally, isn't it?
Yes, I think so. I'm not sure why. I guess that's because they're halfway through, what's happening in terms of sales figures. But yes, further along in the year, hopefully there's some more good news to be had.
It'd be great. And again, podcast listeners, if you are winning awards as clerks, as providers of your services, let me know. Send them details to me, to sian@inventorybase.com. Let us talk about it. Let's get you out there. Let's get you recognised for what you're doing. Thanks for listening to today's Inventory Professional podcast. I hope you found it really useful. Again, put my details on the notes for today's podcast, and so you can get in touch with me. Thank you very much again, Melissa, and I look forward to catching up with you all again in our next podcast with the Inventory Professional.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Inventory Professional Podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, subscribe to our podcast now and share the love. This podcast was brought to you by Inventory Base, providers of industry-leading property inspection software, accredited training, and on-demand property reports.